Okay. So basically, this whole article talking about, all of these terrible leftists who are winning. Then it gets to how this does not work in Chicago. So far, the Democratic Socialists of America's success has been confined in large part to deep blue city districts. Meanwhile, in suburban areas and in statewide contests, establishment Democrats generally are winning against progressive challengers. Chicago saw its own version of this dynamic in March in the hotly contested and crowded race to succeed retiring Rep. Jan Schakowsky in the 9th Congressional District. The bomb throwing influencer. Did she ever throw a bomb, Blue?
No, she did not. And she's Arab, so that feels racist. She's also not
It
a news reporter.
does.
She's a journalist. You would think the journalists at the Tribune would know that because they're also
Oh my God.
journalists.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
She won portions of that district in Chicago's North Side lakefront neighborhoods, but suburban vote gave savvy Evanston Mayor Daniel Biss the win.
Yeah. What he won by 3.5% of the vote, and he didn't get almost a single vote in McHenry County. So, it's so funny because if this was the other way around, it'd be like, Daniel Biss really knew how to speak to rural voters, and like that's important as it's such fucking bullshit. And listen, guys,
Also,
this
he's
is
not savvy. He had a lot of people doing dirty work for him in the background that if they were not doing that, he would not have won. God. But he
That's my
is your
best friend,
member
so
of
I'm a little
Congress
sensitive.
now.
So,
So, Daniel Biss, we're still friendly with you, though. Don't worry.
2 years.
What is clear is that centrist Democrats haven't mounted much of a fight. The DSA candidates, and they don't fight anyone, though. That's the thing. Centrist Democrats don't fucking fight anybody.
No, they
That's
don't.
the point. DSA candidates and those in their ideological camp have an identity and an energy none can mistake. Medicare for all, taxing the rig, ending aid to Israel. So then it's like, good luck with flyover states. And it's like, talking about how nobody in Idaho would want this. And then the next op-ed I found was an Idaho paper saying Jesus would not endorse the DSA. I'm like, well, clearly in Idaho, they're afraid of it too. And then, of course, it ends. Take as just one example, liberal Jewish voters. How many of them will be willing to swallow sufficiently hard to vote for someone who was justifying the butchery of Hamas on October 8th, 2023? Not so many, we'd wager, rightly so. Okay, so thoughts on this piece that the Tribune thought would be so important to publish?
I'd love to hear what Leo thinks about this because Leo is kind of much closer to the left, I think, than to the streets than I am. And I think the Tribune is betting that there's going to be this kind of like reactionary backlash against Brandon Johnson that's going to lead to a wave of kind of conservative wins in Chicago. And I think one of the things that's interesting in Chicago is that because we have nonpartisan elections for the municipal spots, that the Democrat Republican thing and the kind of binary goes away. So everyone's kind of all over the map. You get like a Susanna Mendoza was basically a Republican, right? But she's running as a Democrat or she's running for mayor. And, it all gets kind of confusing. So in a way, though, it's nicer because they get to think about, well, we should at least be able to think about politics a little bit more holistically and thinking about what's actually going to happen on a stylistic level. Sure, the trip may have a point. Like politics here is always going to read a little bit differently than it does in New York and it does in the coasts and what have you. But ultimately, people are facing the same issues. And I think when centrists are talking about progressives or DSA or whatever, they're always talking about what we can't be. But at the end of the day, people still can't eat. People still can't afford their houses. We can't breathe outside right now. We have all the same problems, and people want to vote for people who solve their problems. And ultimately, the left is the place that has answers, and the center is telling you all the reasons we can't solve your problems. So, I think that much to the dismay of the Chicago Tribune editorial board, the left, however you want to define that, is going to continue to be a really powerful force because we're the ones who are actually trying to solve problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Leo. Go ahead.
No, yeah. Yeah. I mean, to that point, I think that one, it's not surprising that the Trib editorial board would drop this. And I mean, traditional media is always going to defend money interests, right? And it doesn't make sense for them to take the side of the people. And with that, we see these candidates that are coming out and really pushing people first agendas and just making sure that your neighbor is okay. And I think that's super important because we have, these centrist folks who are telling us like everything's okay. And even when things are not, just vote a little bit harder. We have the right that is always telling us, everything's fine, but really it's the person that's starving next to you that is trying to steal the food off your plate. So people opening up their eyes and realizing that we're all in this struggle together is really pushing these types of candidates forward. So we're not going to get, traditional media to admit to that, not anytime soon. So I think that, non-traditional media, podcasts, Twitch, all these people are going to be super influential and crucial to us getting our messages out and, opening up platforms for people to come and speak and share their message. And then, it really humanizes all of us.
I definitely agree. And Andrew, I think to your point, unfortunately, the left is not the only one with answers, right? Like we're the only ones with correct answers, but the right is also giving answers. The answers are that the blacks and the Hispanic individuals in this country are stealing all of your goods and resources, right? The reason why a political mover like Trump and the far right are able to dominate so hard because you're absolutely correct. If there is a fundamental problem that is happening in America that is choking Americans, and one side of the political aisle says there's nothing wrong, buddy. Everything is great, actually. And the other one is like, no, there is a problem, but the problem is something racist, right? Something misogynistic, something homophobic or transphobic. Well, there's only one person addressing the problem, and that's where the left, the progressive, the leftists have to really push hard to give an answer to that, right? Because otherwise we're going to keep getting far right actors winning in these spaces. And obviously none of us agree with that framing, but like you can empathize with a starving American choosing to go with someone that is at least giving some semblance of an answer to the problem, opposed to telling you your stomach's not grumbling. Actually, you're not losing your house. Actually, the economy is great. Actually, so that's, I think, my perspective on it.
Mhm. So I want to get into the mayoral race. I'm curious. Brandon Johnson, only 14% of Chicagoans want him to seek reelection. He is, a progressive mayor. I'm wondering if this is because he can't get things done because the establishment won't let him. If, he just isn't really good at what he's doing. What is going on that he has such a low approval rating? And I'm sure they are going to use this as like, but look, you got a progressive and it didn't work. So here you go now. What are your thoughts on, yeah, just how he's been doing?
I'll take that,
Yeah.
Leo.
So I mean, I've been a critic of Johnson from very early on in his administration. And it began with the 60-day shelter stay for the new arrivals when they were getting bussed in from Texas and Florida. And they had to do this weird, leave the shelter, reapply, go to the landing zone, wait for them to call you, and maybe you'll get back to the shelter that you were at, where you're already building community for these 60 days. And I think we're all in the same mindset of, community does provide some sort of safety. So you get to know these people that you were bussed in with, you build a little community, and now you potentially move. So we were pushing back against that. We tried to reach out to his office, to administration, after several failed attempts. We did a little sleepover at his house with a little invitation saying, Brandon, come sleep outside with us, and, pushing back on how can you propose a safety plan when you're evicting people. But looking at the whole landscape right now, I do think that it's going to have to be another vote blue no matter who. In this case, vote progressive no matter who, because it is hard to swallow me voting for a Susana Mendoza, a George Cardenas, or any one of these other people that are coming out. What I think is impacting, I think it is a lot of uncertainty, right? He's a first time mayor. He is a organizer slash activist slash teacher turned politician. And I think that not everyone has the tactfulness. I think it was Alder Taylor who said we weren't ready for the fifth floor. Also pretty early on in the Johnson administration. And I think there's some truth to that, right? We need people to be in these spaces that might have this organizing and activist background, but are ready to turn those into tangibles, policies, because then we have, aldermen who are just screaming and grandstanding versus creating actual material changes and changing these conditions that are on the ground, right? Or we have potholes because we're too busy thinking about other things that might score us some points. So ultimately, I do think that we need to really look at, as a movement of who we're propping for these positions and make sure that they are grounded and ready to turn from, movement leaders into movement supporters and backers, because that is the only way that we're going to be able to change actual material conditions. Because we could do mutual aid all we want, but if, the system is still collapsing upon us, we cannot really survive in it.
Like Blue was just talking about, we expect too little from our politicians. We really need to raise our standards, and we need to give people, like, people are afraid of dreaming too big. We can say Medicare for all, but that seem so intangible. So what are the things that are actually tangible that we can promise people that they can expect and that they can hold people accountable to?
Yeah, I mean, I've often been told that I have like pie in the sky ideas, but I really think like basic material changes within your ward are so crucial and necessary, right? Public bathrooms, those could help so many people, but we refuse to fight for them because they might not be popular because a neighbor might say, oh, well, someone that's unhoused is going to live in there. Or someone's going to do drugs in there, and then we're going to lose X amount of votes. I don't think that is the case. I think we stand by our principles and our values. And I also think that as a movement, we cannot be scared to put demands on our allied politicians, right? We helped get you in office. So if you're not listening to the demands of the people, then we're going to help remove you from office and put someone else who will. Everyone takes, left on left critique as something negative, but call-ins are always welcome. Call-ins should always be happening because that is the only way that we stay, true north and true to our values.
Yeah, I think that's right. Politics is messy, and it should be it should be something that we're all participating in. And if we're all participating in it, you better believe if somebody's unhappy, they're going to call it out, and like that should be something that's expected. And somehow we've kind of developed this kind of political culture where our elected leaders are, it's somehow permissible for them to just kind of be totally absent and like never hold a town hall, never be seen. And they show up, at super staged events during a cycle. And so I think that, yeah, that's just to say that this idea of like, look at the Tea Party and the right wing takeover of the Republican Party. Those guys hate each other. They hate each other, but they still line up and they vote for the same candidates. They kind of understand they have like an overarching ideological project. And for us, I think like kind of the point that Leo's been driving at, and one of the areas where I think our politics really overlaps the most is this idea of like community at the center of everything. Like the question we should always be asking ourselves is, how are we strengthening community? Like my neighbors, the two doors down, they sold their house and they had this bench. They would always be hanging out there. They're always in the front of the sidewalk. They're just hanging out. It was like it brought so much life to the block. You always knew they're going to be there. And it made me so sad when they moved because it's like an empty corner now. It's a void on the block. And then I was talking to another neighbor like, want to put a bench out in front of mine? He's like, oh, you can't do that. The vagrants will sleep there. And I was like, first off, there was a bench for like 15 years next to my house and it was fine. And like, how is that the first
And
time?
also, who cares?
Who cares if I saw somebody sleeping out in the sidewalk,
Good.
it's not hurting. So, that whole thing. But it is about community and just one more quick thing, your question about Johnson. I think that part of the problem is he hasn't really been consistent. He's kind of pissed everybody off. And so like one of the first things he did is he gave the CPD, the police department, a record raise, which everyone was kind of confused by. And the cops still don't like him. Like they were always going to continue hating him. And so from a political perspective, that move didn't make any sense. Like just own it that the cops are not going to like you and deal with that relationship. Don't try to kind of sweeten it for them. And then at the same time, being mayor of Chicago sucks. Like it's very difficult to be the mayor of any big city, and especially one that has a debt crisis like we have. And so you're always going to be dealing with cuts. You're always going to be dealing with kinds of things that are going to piss everybody off, and it becomes a messaging exercise. And also keeping your base together and mobilized. But the problem is Johnson won in such a multi-way primary, and then he ran against Vallis, who's just like a cartoon book villain. So you don't even totally know where his base is, and it becomes very easy to start pissing a lot of different people off. And I feel like there are a lot of little pivots in there. And so like the 60-day thing with the refugees who were coming over here, that was unnecessary and it didn't end up doing anything. But there was a lot of political pressure on it because so many people were mad. But it also wasn't the problem of our making. It was Texas and Florida just shipping people here in shipping containers and dropping off in like suburban malls. Like it was disgusting. And that narrative got completely lost in Chicago. And when he starts talking about that, it sounds like he's making excuses when he's actually explaining the situation, which is correct, that this is an intentional crisis trying to sink a progressive black mayor of a major city. Like it's no accident they chose Chicago. But still, the way the crisis unrolled, like he should have just been like, hey, these are human beings on our streets. Are we going to let them freeze to death in the wintertime? Of course we're not. But he said we were going to, right, with the 60 days, even though he didn't actually let that happen because he has a soul. And so there's a lot of these things that just kind of created, everyone's been annoyed at some point in the past 4 years, and it's not a great place for an incumbent to be. And the last thing I'll say on this is that Marty Quinn, who is, one of the powerhouses in City Hall, one of the last like kind of mentees of Mike Madigan, he just announced he's retiring recently. And in an interview, he said that Johnson absolutely a path to victory. He says, don't snooze on CTA and don't snooze on the DSA. And, particularly in such a crowded field, there's a clear path for the mayor to to get to the runoff. And once he's in the runoff, like Leo was saying, if it's Johnson against Susana Mendoza, there's not a question in the world. If folks don't know Electric Susie, look that up on YouTube because it's shocking. And no person of conscience should ever vote for her.
Okay, we have Electric Susie here. Let's check her out, and then we'll look at the contenders for this race.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, today marks the end of a long and difficult journey for me on the issue of the death penalty. Many of you may recall that I was one of the last members in this chamber to pass an expansion of the death penalty. In fact, there was no issue that I was more passionate about than that one issue. Throughout my entire life, I've been a staunch supporter of the death penalty and a firm believer in the justice it serves and the punishment it represents for the worst of the worst in our society. I still believe that to be true. I want to leave no doubt that I feel no compassion or see any value whatsoever in the lives of the truly guilty on death row. I could administer the death penalty myself to a cop killer or a serial murderer and sleep like a baby at night if I knew without a doubt of their guilt. As a matter of fact, I believe that our current manner of executing the guilty in Illinois is much too compassionate and shows respect for life where the killer had none. I believe that a sanitized death is too kind and that the guilty should die in a manner much harsher, truer to the crimes that they committed. I know that this may sound cruel to some of you, but it pales in
It may sound cruel. Are you fucking joking?
to the cruelty inflicted upon so many innocent victims by these murderous animals.
God.
This debate for me is no longer about whether or not guilty killers deserve to die for their crimes. They do deserve to die. They do.
What the fuck? Literally, what the fuck? I have too
Holy
much to say
shit.
about that. I mean, I know, this is just what is wrong. What the fuck is
Wait, so you're not
this
going to
is
vote for
just
her for mayor?
I might. I'm thinking about it, but I think we're just we are so far. I know this was like 7 years ago, but this is still like the mentality. People have such a punitive mentality, and you cannot address harm with more harm. You cannot dehumanize any population. That's like the baseline of authoritarianism. So yeah, people are murderers, and they're still humans, and dehumanizing any population is not going to make that go away.
100%.
Yes,
100%. And it's also always disproportionately black and brown people.
Yeah, like whatever his name, Sergeant or whatever, John Burge, and he like tortured confessions out of like 300 people. Like, come on.
No,
And
she's running. Is she like okay? So she's running. She's the comptroller.
Yeah.
How did she get that? What is happening?
she's like an old Madigan person. She was a Burke person, actually, an Ed Burke person. But she was in that old machine, and Burke was the one who supported her run for state rep.
Okay, cool. Now we have Quigley. Tell us about Quigley. I should know more about him, but I don't.
Hey, Quigley's whole thing is, he congressman of the 5th congressional district, covers most of the northwest side, way out in the suburbs. He in Congress has been like a foreign affairs specialist. Particularly, he's a veteran of one of the branches. I don't remember which one, but he's a big like military defense guy, all that kind of stuff. He's been an okay congressman, honestly. He's okay on most issues. Kind of a very awkward guy. It just feels like I think certain politicians run for office as a way of gracefully bowing out. Like they can't tell themselves they're going to quit for some reason. I don't think this man has any shot at becoming mayor. He flirted with last time. He'll have money, he'll have some support, but I don't see him making that.
But his logo is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I haven't
Okay,
seen it.
let's see.
It's like a hockey stick.
Okay, that is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's pretty kind of fun.
Okay, we can give him that at least. Okay, who else we got? We've got George Cardenas.
Dude, George
what's
is
his
the
deal?
worst.
Okay.
Yeah, there was some social media pages years ago that would follow him around.
So his claim to fame. So he was the alderman of 12th Ward, right there.
Yeah.
12th Ward is like McKinley Park, Brighton Park, just south of us here in Pilsen, and he basically built a giant asphalt plant in his own backyard and then moved.
That's not funny. That's not funny.
What?
Yeah, so if you like run in McKinley Park, it's like one of the prettiest parks on the south side. If you run there in the morning, like 5 a.m., you can't breathe because they're mixing the asphalt. And like in his own block, like he's like blocks away from that. And anyway, that dude he's got to be like one of the most personally disliked people in City Hall, I think. And then he had taken a ton of money from the family that owns Matt Asphalt. A bunch of them. So he got paid off basically. He's also he pays like $2,000 a month to like lease his car for the past like 20 years, and he charges it all to the political account. He's given his brother a bunch of money from his political fund. I'm pretty sure. A lot of shady stuff with like how he moves political money. He's one of the old HDO guys in the Hispanic Democratic Organization, which is like the old daily machine. Basically, he was a terrible alderman. His ward hated him. And so, of course, he failed upwards and became a board of review member, which is
How do we let people fail upwards?
nobody knows what the board of review is. So if you got enough money and you get your name out there, and at a board of review, you get like 40 people that work for you. It's like one of the last true patronage jobs or positions left in this in the state. And so he ran one of his people, one of his employees against Leader Ma, and ran another one against Julia Ramirez, who's now the alderwoman in the 12th ward. And so, yeah, he's basically somebody who's always abused power. He's somebody who is corrupt, poisoned his own community, and now wants to run to Chicago, run for as mayor of Chicago to further enrich himself and poison us all.
It's so insulting. It's so insulting that like that is the way the system is set up so people like that like actually can throw their hat in. This is fun. Okay, tell us about Matthew Brewer.
You know anything about him, Leo? He's just a rich business person, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much as much as I've looked up on him.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. This guy may run, is what people are saying, right? What's his deal?
The
Alexi
Secretary of State.
Giannoulias.
Alexi.
Yeah.
Well, Alexi's in it, man. There ain't no maybe.
I was gonna say.
He's running ads for Secretary of State, but they're only hitting Chicago. Which so he's got like $25 million in the bank. Look, I like Alexi. Like on a personal level, I think he's a nice guy. I think his whole thing is okay, this is an attempt at a 60-second, hold me to it, 60-second background on Alexi. Alexi is the son of wealthy Greek bankers who had, I think it was called Bridgeport Bank or I think it was Bridgeport Bank. But they had a bank, it failed during the financial crisis. As it failed, they had given a bunch of really bad loans out. And so there was a bit of a scandal around it. They were very politically connected. And in that moment, Alexi had he had like half a foot out the door of the bank because it's a family bank, but he had become what was he? He was a treasurer, right? Leo, you remember?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. So I think he was the state treasurer and he was really close with Obama. And so when Obama was running for state senate, he got the Greek business community to donate really hard, really heavy by Obama. They'd never really been engaged before. So he raised a lot of money from Obama. Obama goes to the US Senate, same backing. Alexi ends up kind of riding his coattails to treasurer, becomes like the youngest ever. But then this whole bank scandal blows up in his face. And he steps out of public life for like 10 years and until he runs for Secretary of State. He wins that. He gets Chewy's award. He gets a bunch of progressives. And he's been, decent. He's done some nice things. I think he did deals. He's done some like great more accessible. But what gives me pause, and he also hired a lot of Latinos, which is something that rarely happens in state government. So a lot of people look favorably on that. What's a little kind of uncomfortable is the donations that he's getting, and he's getting it from like all of the billionaires. I mean, he's getting everything. So he's got a lot of trade unions locked up. So like operating engineers are getting him millions of dollars. He's getting really significant money from a lot of different trade unions. Their support is clear on this. And then he's also getting a lot of support from like basically all of the local billionaire families or billionaire families who have heavy interests in Chicago. And it's just hard to get excited about the guy who's taking all of the money from all of the billionaires. So yeah, that probably was like 100.
Good job. It's all right. Well, that's the thing with Chicago. Illinois Democrats are still more conservative than Texas Democrats. If you saw the list of Texas Democrats who voted to end aid to Israel, it was like basically all of them, minus like, 3 or 4.
Yeah, we only have one real party in the state, and so it has all of it.
Yeah.
Wait, look up on Google Images, Alexi Giannoulias tummy time.
Got it. Okay.
Oh, hold on, maybe let me look it up first to make sure it's not.
Okay. Yeah. Look it up and send me the link. Wait, I see it. Hold on.
This man is he's a thirst trap, and he loves being a thirst trap. Oh,
Oh no, it's not this.
yeah. And then
So why? Why?
I'll leave it as okay. No, look up Alexi Giannoulias thirst trap. It's better.
God. Okay, fine. The thing is, like, people like him with that much backing in a place like this win, and that's what's like. Do you think he would win?
I think he's the favorite. I think everyone thinks he's the favorite because the thing is that like nobody hates Alexi.
Yeah.
Like some people really like Alexi, and maybe just for aesthetic reasons or whatever. And nobody hates him, and he has $25 million. And so that to me like really sets him apart there.
This is so cringe. What the fuck are you doing, guy?
My
There's a one
god.
that just came out recently of him like doing a backflip into the lake. He's looking swole as hell, man. Like whatever the bodybuilders do, like they're cutting the weight down or whatever to get all trim. Like he's cutting right now.
He's got too much time and money on his hands, it sounds like. God. Okay. So what should people be looking out for? Like what do you want people to know most importantly about the mayor race? And then we can talk about the alderman races.
What do people got to know, Leo?
I think it's always vote your values, right? And that sounds pretty easy and pretty corny, but I do think that you don't succumb to pressures of your allies and all that. Like Andrew said, I think Alexi is a clear front runner for in a lot of spaces. However, I find it a little hard to trust millionaires and multimillionaires and people who don't really grow up in similar struggles and understand what it is to have to fight for dignity from government and from the people that are supposedly representative of you. So there is this level of mistrust there. Like I said, just with the current
I'm just gonna say fuck that guy, but
and possible candidates, I do think that at this point I'm leaning again to Brandon, even though we have some stuff to talk about. But I do think that encouraging progressive voices and leftist voices to have those call-in moments with Brandon before we get to this election time is going to be key, or else we're just really running the establishment Dem playbook again.
yeah. I mean, go ahead, sorry.
I would just say quickly, in terms of what people can do right now, the early campaign time before people have really staked out a position on anything is the moment. Like if you're an activist, if you're part of some kind of collective or group or whatever, like now is the time really to be making noise around the issues that you care about because the platforms haven't really been defined yet. And if you can get
Mhm.
meaningful support around your core issues, you can help shape people's platforms. So it's never too early to start pushing people on specific platform priorities.
The thought of having like another rich person, we already have Pritzker, and he'll probably run for president or whatever. But even thinking about the quantum data center, how much that South Shore is trying to fight the quantum data center. And they say like Brandon Johnson has tried, but he just does not have the political capital to do anything about it. We get another billionaire, millionaire, whatever. And there's no chance of fighting things like data centers, like things that really hurt our communities and benefit corporations, in my opinion. So, like, people stay away from this guy, please. Don't buy his bullshit and his disgusting thirst traps. Okay, now,
Not you hating on the baddie being the baddie. That's great.
Yeah.
It's baddie on
All
baddie.
right.
sorry,
It's baddie on
Alexi,
baddie violence.
changed my mind,
You got
Dave.
a 10
Okay,
pack. That changed my mind.
I don't know. He can
Might
change
have
my
to vote
mind.
for the
Go
guy.
for it. I'd love to
Yeah,
see it. I'd love to see it.
I mean,
Okay.
not to get into too much politics. He does have some nice calves, and he wears shorts a lot.
That's what showed you.
So
He got the hoochie daddies on. He got the hoochie daddies on.
I do have to jump off before I head out. If people want to follow me at Leo for Community on Instagram, and we're going to be launching a very amazing campaign that will set up this next conversation.